Despite being assigned the weakest class, he never gave up on his dream of becoming a hero. How will he achieve this, and what challenges lie ahead? That's what we'll find out in today's story. The scene opens inside a dark and desolate place known as the Labyrinth, a place teeming with monsters and traps. Adventurers who dare to enter are divided into 4 types. A huge rat-like monster appears devouring its prey, foreshadowing the danger of the surrounding environment. The first type of adventurer is the warrior, who relies on his physical build to stand on the front lines, and tension was clearly visible on him when he saw the giant rat blocking their way. The second type is the priest, whose role is to support the team with holy power, and the priestess asked anxiously if this dead end was their only path. The third type is known as the mage, representing the team's striking power, but the narrative shifts to focus on the fourth type. The fourth type are those who enter the labyrinth with no superpowers, and the group confirmed that there was no escape but to face the monster. When the monster's gaze met the adventurers, the warrior suddenly shirked his duty, hiding behind the rocks. The priestess asked him to advance first, arguing that she would cover him from behind. He was stunned by her request, justifying his position with clear cowardice by claiming there was another way, but she retorted that all other paths were closed and there was no choice but to advance. At that moment, the boy with black hair stepped in, offering to handle the fight instead of them. His offer surprised the priestess and the warrior, as he held the job of a guide, a role whose tasks are usually limited to detecting traps and identifying monsters' weaknesses. It is known that guides possess no significant combat abilities and are like ordinary people in battles, so his companions hesitated to let him advance alone toward the danger. The warrior tried to save face, claiming to the skeptical priestess that he didn't leave the task to the guide out of fear, but out of curiosity to see the fighting style of someone with no skills. The guide agreed with them, explaining that guides are at the bottom of the adventurer hierarchy. Even if classified as rookies, they are considered elite in their category, and generally, there is no reason for them to fight. Despite these facts, he advanced into the darkness holding a lamp in his hand, confirming he had a strong motive to fight. His companions wondered about the secret of his holding onto the lamp while facing a monster. He explains that labyrinth rats are nocturnal by nature, so they do not attack with excessive ferocity in well-lit places. He used this information to his advantage and suddenly turned off the lamp, blocking the light completely. As an instinctive reaction, the savage rat rushed toward its prey in the darkness with tremendous speed. The guide realized it was more dangerous than he expected, but he kept his cool, waiting for it to approach a precisely determined distance. At the moment the rat was directly in front of him, he suddenly relit the lamp. The bright sudden light blinded and completely confused the nocturnal monster, causing it to let out a loud shriek. The boy exploited this opening skillfully, drawing his dagger to stab the temporarily paralyzed monster. His plan succeeded, and he managed to eliminate it with a decisive blow. The priestess was amazed by the result, finally realizing that the lamp wasn't just for illumination, but was a tactical weapon used to exploit the monster's characteristics, so she praised him enthusiastically. In contrast, he tried to downplay what happened, claiming with a forced laugh that it was just a simple labyrinth rat. He added that any adventurer could handle a low-level monster like that, trying to hide his pride or embarrassment. While he was catching his breath, the priestess suddenly screamed, warning him of a danger behind him. He turned in panic to find another rat ambushing him from the rear. He barely had time to process the situation when the mage intervened and cast a fire spell on it. The blonde girl stepped in at the critical moment to defend him, scolding him for his stubbornness and persistence. She reproached him, saying she had offered him help beforehand, disapproving of his going to face the danger alone. Then she asked anxiously if he was hurt, and the narrative reveals she is Rena, his childhood friend. He mentioned they had parted ways years ago before meeting recently, expressing his great surprise at the power she had attained compared to the past. He claimed confidently that he could have caught all the monsters if he hadn't lowered his defenses, but she demanded he thank her. He acceded to her request and thanked her for saving him. He sat heavily on the ground and let out a sound expressing fatigue, which surprised her. When she asked him if he was okay, noticing his discomfort, he feigned ignorance to avoid answering. Rena changed the subject, commenting on how strange his job as a guide was, and asked if his abandonment of the dream of heroism was due to that incident. He confirmed her words were true, recalling memories of his childhood when he dreamed of becoming a hero. He remembered the panic of people and their screams as they fled from a mysterious monster, and how that monster appeared with its deadly claws and unforgettable terrifying form. He realized then his total inability to save anyone due to his weakness, which drove him to run away and choose the path of a guide. She understood the matter, but asked him critically why he tried to fight the labyrinth rat alone now, despite knowing his weakness. He answered with a serious look that he had a goal he wanted to achieve, and for that, he had to become strong. He emphasized that he could no longer bear remaining a weak person unable to do anything. Rena suggested that after they took a break, they should start searching for the mandrake. The narrative explained that rookie adventurers usually form parties and accept requests to earn a living. The two agreed to join the rest of the group to start. Meanwhile, the boy looked toward the depths of the labyrinth, sensing something strange, but convinced himself it was just his imagination. The duo met up with the rest of the team and decided to split up to search for the mandrake. The plan was set so that the boy and Rena would take Area B starting from their current location, while the warrior and the priestess would take Area C. On the other side, the warrior decided, after searching one side of Area C, to move to the other side. He shouted at the priestess to distract her as she walked toward a place already checked, so she apologized to him in confusion. He muttered with annoyance, believing her lack of focus was due to her thinking about the guide, and resolved to prove himself in front of her. He noticed a treasure chest in the dark corridor. He insisted on opening it, saying a treasure chest couldn't be ignored. Despite the priestess's astonishment, she hesitated, fearing it might be a trap, and suggested asking for the guide's help. Her suggestion angered the warrior, who rejected the need for the guide and told her to just watch him. As he advanced with confident steps toward the chest, she wondered about the fate of the Mandrake search mission. In Area B, the boy bent toward the ground, smelling the soil deeply, prompting Rina to describe his style as resembling a guide's perfectly, so he explained to her that the mandrake plant has a distinctive scent that allows him to track it through the smell of the soil. Rina noticed his preoccupation and thought, so she activated a sensory magic spell to enhance his sense of smell for a limited time, thinking it would help him a little. He thanked her, believing it would speed up the search process, while she justified her action by saying she felt bad just watching from the sidelines without helping. He actually picked up the scent and pointed to its source, so the two set off in the specified direction. Internally, she had already determined the mandrake's location beforehand, but she wondered with surprise what her companion was doing tracking a different scent. He explained that his enhanced sense of smell picked up a faint, disgusting odor that grew stronger the deeper they went into the labyrinth, noting it was a familiar smell to him. He confirmed the source was very close to their current location, while she continued to observe him. Rina felt it was difficult to deal with him and his changed demeanor, and started thinking of a topic to start a conversation to break the silence. She suddenly asked him if he had heard the story about the royal guard chasing bandits. He confirmed hearing the news and that the guard hadn't caught some of them, to which she added that rumors say a hero is chasing them now. Then she moved on to talk about the suspicious merchant disappearance case that happened near the labyrinth, which he hadn't heard of before. When he inquired why she brought up this topic suddenly, Rina hypothesized that the bandits might have killed the merchants and hidden inside this labyrinth. She pointed out that the labyrinth ruins make an ideal hideout for criminals, but stopped suddenly when she noticed a change in her companion's facial expressions. He seemed extremely tense, so Rina asked if her talk had frightened him. She tried to joke by offering her protection if he was scared, but he commented on the presence of a strange smell. He muttered disjointed words describing the smell as stinking, which stunned her. Rina was flustered, thinking he meant her scent, confirming shyly that she had bathed this morning, but he clarified he was talking about a smell in the place. Then he said it clearly and with shock. It is the smell of a corpse. Their search and tracking of the scent led them to a dark gap where the smell was at its strongest. When they looked down into the gap, they found corpses floating on the stagnant water in a horrific scene. On the other side of the labyrinth, the priestess suggested to the warrior that they return to search for the mandrake after a long time had passed. But he told her he was almost finished opening the chest. The priestess paused for a moment, feeling the atmosphere was strange and different from usual, and that something was wrong. Suddenly, the priestess heard a strange sound and asked in panic about its source. Suddenly, the warrior announced loudly that he had managed to open the chest, which shocked the priestess. He moved to open it, ignoring his colleague's warnings asking him to wait and not open it so quickly. The warrior mocked her fear, claiming it was easy and demanding she just watch, but he broke into a sweat as soon as he opened the chest. The priestess looked around carefully, noticing the place was extremely huge, and wondered about the existence of such a space inside. The priestess tried to remind him of the sound they heard earlier and the possibility it came from here, but she downplayed it as nothing while the warrior was busy examining the chest's contents. While the warrior was commenting on the value of what he found, the priestess, who called him by the name Simon, interrupted him and asked anxiously if he had heard something just now. The priestess called out to Simon again with concern, inquiring if he heard anything, but he didn't answer. Suddenly, the warrior's body collapsed and fell to the ground motionless, striking the priestess with terror and astonishment. Elsewhere, the guide sensed imminent danger and realized the situation could not tolerate division, so he urged Rina to hurry with him to catch up with the warrior and the priestess. The two moved quickly toward them. The warrior was lying on the ground bleeding, while the priestess sat beside him trying to heal him using her magic. The priestess analyzed the situation quickly, noting there was no trap, meaning the poisoned arrow came from an external source, and realized the necessity of removing the poison immediately. While she was thinking, she glimpsed a mysterious shadow sneaking behind her with clear killing intent. The assassin brought his dagger down toward the priestess to stab her, but she blocked the dagger with her hands, barely preventing the blade from reaching her with great difficulty. The assassin grumbled about his bad luck, noting he was about to leave if not for their arrival at this time. The assassin decided not to waste time, announcing his intention to kill the priestess immediately to get rid of her. The assassin pressed with all his might on the dagger, trying to overcome the resistance of the priestess, who was trembling from the effort. Suddenly, the guide intervened in a split second and knocked the assassin away. The assassin fell to the ground and screamed in pain from the sudden blow. He cursed them angrily while trying to gather his strength to stand, but the guide appeared behind him to grab him from the rear. The guide screamed, calling for Rina to play her part now. Rina responded immediately and fired a magic bullet spell. The spell hit the masked assassin's face accurately and confused him. The guide seized the opportunity to check on the priestess, and Rina asked him if he could use holy power. He replied that he could stop the bleeding with his limited skills, but he realized the situation was worse than expected. Both the warrior and the priestess were poisoned, making it imperative for them to flee quickly. Rina proposed a plan to retreat where she would transport one of the injured with her magic and he would carry the other, but the assassin interrupted them mockingly, confirming that wouldn't happen. He threatened that his comrades would arrive soon, and that rookies like them stood no chance against them, offering them surrender now to make their death painless. But Rina hit him on the head to silence him. She believed the assassin was only trying to instill terror in their hearts. The guide noticed a bag lying there containing coins and jewelry, deducing they were the missing merchant's stolen goods, and that the gang was using the labyrinth as a temporary base. He began to fear that the assassin's threat of his comrade's arrival was real. His fears were confirmed when his ears picked up sounds coming from afar, placing him in a real predicament he didn't know how to get out of. The guide looked at the injured warrior and priestess, realizing if he left them, they would inevitably die. but he wondered in despair if he could save them being just a weak guide. The priestess begged him, tears filling her face, to save them. He remembered when his mother used to place her hands over his eyes, asking him not to look. The voice of his mother echoed in Cariel's mind, telling him coldly not to look into the eyes of his begging comrades because that would increase his pain and change nothing of his helplessness. The auditory hallucination continued, reminding him of that ominous day monsters attacked his village. His mother, in his imagination, accused him of turning his back on a child screaming for help, which he tried to deny with a trembling voice. But the voice continued cruelly, reminding him he wasn't a hero and that saving others is a privilege only for the strong, advising him with his weak arms to pretend not to see anything. Despair began to take hold of the boy, and he acknowledged deep down the truth of those words and his inability to save anyone. At the moment he decided to obey the voice and turn his face away, Rena's scream of his name pierced his illusions. Rena repeated, screaming the name Cariel forcefully to bring him back to reality. She asked him frantically if he was okay, demanding he pull himself together and not collapse now. The boy regained his consciousness, admitting she was right, realizing the current time did not allow for drowning in memories of the past. Cariel apologized to Rena for worrying her, confirming his priority now was finding a way to survive. He began analyzing the situation with precise calculations. They were facing a thief gang experienced in combat, while their team consisted of 2 injured, a mage, and a guide, all inside an ancient labyrinth. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind when he remembered the nature of the place as a labyrinth. Realizing this might be the lifeline, he called out to Rena with a firm tone. He asked her to execute what he would say to the letter, confirming there was a way out. The two moved quickly to execute the plan, determined to leave this place today. Meanwhile, the thieves were talking about the hero who chased them and injured their leader, believing the reason for their rush to leave the place was that pursuit. The thieves reached the corridor to find the boy standing alone facing them, so they wondered in astonishment about his identity. They mocked him as soon as they saw him, ruling out he was the hero chasing them, but they noticed something in his hand. They realized he was holding their bag of stolen goods, so they decided to kill him immediately to retrieve the jewels. The thief told his comrades it didn't matter if they knew him or not. The important thing was to avoid unnecessary trouble. The thief offered him a fake deal, asking him to hand over the goods in exchange for letting him pass. The boy realized immediately it was a trick and just a false negotiation, reminding himself these were killers in the first place. Rena hid in the shadows ready, while the boy was certain that fighting was inevitable. He resolved to move, then threw the bag toward them. The thief praised the boy's intelligence in reading the situation, but bared his fangs, confirming their rule that witnesses are not left alive. In a surprise move, he screamed, announcing the start of the attack, where Rena cast a fire spell on the thieves. This caused a strong explosion in the place where the thieves stood. Cariel hoped the thieves would fall with that blow, but the thief managed to block the blow, mocking his cheap tricks and confirming he wouldn't die easily. The boy realized plan A had failed, so he decided to switch immediately to the next plan. He retreated backward quickly, consoling himself that his attack wasn't in vain, as he succeeded in isolating 2 thieves and the mage from the rest a little. The thief shouted, warning his comrades of allies hiding nearby, asking them to stay vigilant. Cariel dodged one of the flying weapons thrown at him, but his leg betrayed him and froze due to tension. The boy continued running toward the light at the end of the corridor, telling himself only a little was left to reach it. A huge-built thief approached him from behind, then directed a powerful punch toward him. The thief mocked his comrade's slowness and rushed toward them violently to shove them out of his way. He threatened to burn Cariel alive, and the boy realized with sorrow that his current physical condition didn't allow him to dodge. At that moment, the thief's pupils dilated when he realized he had lowered his defenses. Rena seized the opportunity and cast a magic spell. The thief realized too late that he wasn't the target. The attack collided with the ceiling and walls, causing a massive rock collapse that blocked the corridor entrance and isolated the thieves from Rena. The thief deduced the boy's plan was to sacrifice himself to isolate his comrades and protect them behind the rubble. Despite his confidence in his ability to smash the wall, the thief decided to save his effort to kill the boy first. He approached with a savage smile, announcing his intention to liquidate the boy in front of him before anything else. The boy caught his breath with difficulty, confirming to himself that things wouldn't go as his enemy thought. He began recalling the details of the plan he explained to Rena, which was securing the injured, the surprise attack, or luring the enemy to Area C. The boy remembered his previous argument with Rena when she strongly rejected the part about closing the corridor, considering it an unacceptable sacrifice to leave him behind and flee. But he had explained to her then that it was just part of the plan, and the most important part was what would follow. The boy asked her then if the sensory enhancement spell she used earlier could be used to isolate sound as well. In the present, the boy executed his crazy plan and grabbed the mandrake plant, pulling it forcefully from the ground. The thieves watched the scene in disbelief that he dared to pull a monster that screams upon being uprooted. The narrative explained that the mandrake's scream causes hallucinations, vomiting, and severe vertigo. Panic struck the hearts of the thieves, and one of them screamed, demanding he stop immediately. He warned his comrades that the scream could be lethal, ordering everyone to cover their ears. The boy thought he would be fine as long as he didn't hear the sound, and managed to pull the plant from the ground, but the mandrake let out its resounding and deadly scream throughout the place. The violent sound waves caused immediate bleeding for the thieves and unbearable pain. Outside the labyrinth, someone wearing a knight's uniform tried to track the scent to get closer to the intended location. Inside the labyrinth, one of the thieves cut the mandrake plant to silence it. The thief felt dizzy but was surprised by the boy's disappearance, assuming he must have received fatal damage as well from the close scream. The thief screamed at his men insanely, announcing the boy had vanished and ordering them to remain on maximum alert. Under the effect of the mandrake scream, which is influenced by people's magic resistance, Cariel exploited the chaos, attacking the mage first as he was the most dangerous link. Cariel pounced with lightning speed toward his target before he could regain his balance. He directed a powerful kick to his staggering opponent, trying to knock him down, while searching with his eyes for the rest of the enemies. The huge thief appeared in front of him, directing a powerful punch toward him. He managed to dodge the punch and grabbed him. He pushed him toward the wall forcefully, making the thief scream in pain. The thief tried to resist, aiming a blow at Cariel, but the latter managed to block it. He gave him no chance to catch his breath, as Cariel pressed on the thief's neck, attempting to strangle him. The thief used what remaining strength he had to press on Cariel's eye. Blood flowed from Cariel's head, but Cariel didn't give in to the pain and kept pressing on the thief's neck. Cariel pressed with all his might on his opponent, who began breathing with difficulty as his strength faded. After the fight ended, Cariel caught his breath, expressing relief that everything went according to plan despite the extreme danger, while Rina indicated she was also in danger, and her magical energy was almost depleted. Rina told him that without her presence, he wouldn't have been able to execute his plan. Cariel confirmed to her that without a mage of her level, they couldn't have even attempted this plan. She agreed with him, but her astonishment was clear when he thanked her sincerely for going along with his reckless plan. Rina tried to lighten the mood, claiming she was joking, but admitted to him shyly that he looked like a real hero today. Cariel smiled warmly and suggested they sit to talk a little once they got out of this predicament, as he was wondering how she had been all this past time. Rina agreed enthusiastically, noting she had much to tell him too, but her attention suddenly shifted to something. She shouted happily, pointing to the bright light at the end of the tunnel, announcing it was the exit. Cariel stared at the light and glimpsed a shadow of a person standing there, which aroused his suspicion. He saw a person smiling at them with an evil smile. His features changed suddenly, and great shock overcame him, and he stopped abruptly. He screamed forcefully, insisting on returning immediately inside the labyrinth and not advancing. Cariel heard the sound of something flying through the air toward them quickly, and Rina rushing toward him to save him. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurred, throwing them violently. Cariel felt severe pain squeezing his body, wondering in astonishment if this attack was a mana shell, and suspected the attacker was the bandit leader. Despite his pain, his concern focused on the safety of the warrior and priestess, and his greatest fear was for Rina, who had drained her magic to protect him earlier and was now in imminent danger. Cariel tried to motivate his exhausted body to get up, but the bandit leader appeared in front of him from amidst the smoke, delivering a violent kick to his stomach. Cariel coughed blood and fell again from the severity of the injury. The enemy looked down with contempt at Cariel lying on the ground, deploring that his opponent was just a guide, describing him as a lowly class and regretting wasting a mana shell on him. The enemy decided not to waste any more time with him and resolved to find the witch to kill her quickly. Cariel fought his gradual loss of consciousness and begged the enemy not to go. Struggling against the darkness clouding his vision and his desperate desire to save Rina, he began to question deep down the futility of his attempts while being weak, and the real motive behind his desire to save people. Thoughts overlapped in his head about whether he sought praise or because he admired heroes, but he found no answer. His confusion increased regarding the reason for seeking power, whether it was for revenge or rescue, reaching a stage of total loss. At that moment, he regained memories of their childhood, and remembered Rina's words questioning if he needed a reason to save anyone, confirming he was always the person who helped others. She told him he always wanted to become a hero, more than anyone else, but he remembered his feeling of helplessness being just a guide compared to her talent as a mage, and his conviction that only the strong save people. He remembered his despair at not being able to save anyone despite his training, and his conviction that this was hero's work only. Rina asked him if he didn't know what to do, and he replied yes, and that he wouldn't do anything, since he couldn't save anyone with his power. But Rina in his memory confronted him with the truth that he couldn't ignore people facing danger even if he decided to give up. When he demanded proof, she pointed to him, confirming his actions were the definitive proof of that. Cariel returned to reality, wondering about the meaning of that memory. Cariel was clinging to the thief's leg in a desperate attempt to stop him from leaving by force, which surprised the enemy. Cariel stared with sharp looks full of determination, explaining his intent, so the thief directed a powerful kick toward him. He managed to block the attack with his hands, but collided forcefully with the wall. The enemy grumbled about his stubbornness and demanded he not stand in his way due to lack of time, mocking his attempt to stand and ordering him to stay put and accept his fate. But Cariel offered his internal thanks to Rina, declaring the chaos in his mind had vanished, and he realized what mattered now. The enemy ignored him and headed toward the tunnel where he found Rina, grabbing her by her hair violently, considering mages a nuisance that must be dealt with firmly. He resolved to kill her to put his mind at ease. Rina was unconscious and mumbling unintelligible words, but she was calling for Cariel. The enemy mocked her, assuming she was begging him to spare her, confirming to her coldly that no one was here to save them. The enemy decided to end it by dealing a finishing blow to Rina. Cariel appeared suddenly behind him, landing a powerful punch that caused severe pain to the enemy. The enemy turned toward him, cursing him, then dealt a powerful blow. The bandit leader groaned in pain, holding the site of his injury, cursing Cariel for hitting him in a vital and sensitive spot. Then he directed his angry gaze toward the boy, mocking him because he was begging for death moments ago, but now refuses to surrender, vowing to kill him immediately right there. When he saw Cariel trying to get up again, the thief exploded in hysterical laughter, describing him as a weed that keeps coming back no matter how hard you try to uproot it. Cariel's body trembled from the intensity of the pain and exhaustion, but he told himself he no longer needed to invent excuses or reasons. Rather, he would fight because he chose to of his own free will. He resolved with stern features that he would save people because this was his own desire. The thief admitted Cariel was not just an ordinary guide since he used high-level holy power, but qualified that by confirming it wouldn't change the reality of his inability to escape. Cariel acknowledged inwardly the difficulty of the situation, as the warrior and priestess were severely injured, and Rena was unconscious. Cariel found no option but to buy some time, hoping for the arrival of the hero chasing the thieves, so he rushed quickly toward the thief. The thief was surprised by the boy rushing toward him. Cariel threw a punch, but the thief exposed it easily, describing it as fake. Cariel realized with sorrow that his sword had shattered inside his bag due to previous impacts, and that with these weak blows, he wouldn't even be able to disable the enemy. So he decided to focus his attack on the thief's wound to ensure causing a real effect. The thief blocked Cariel's attempt and grabbed his fist with complete ease, then directed a blow toward his face. He delivered a powerful kick, making Cariel scream in pain. The thief mocked him, asking if he really thought he would win just because he landed a lucky blow last time. Cariel resisted the pain and refused to fall, mocking with a loud scream. The thief looked at him with disdain, commenting he had never seen someone this stupid before. The thief's expectations were disappointed as he waited to see greater skills and announced the boy was just a waste of his time. But Cariel clung to the thief's leg with all his might, refusing to let go. The thief laughed, realizing the boy was holding on to him only in hopes of the hero arriving to save them. Suddenly the thief stopped, announcing he changed his mind thanks to Cariel's persistence. He realized someone with such determination was far more dangerous than any mage. He decided with a savage look that he would kill everyone before leaving and leave no one alive. Cariel felt his body had reached its absolute limits and apologized inwardly to Rena for his inability to save her. As the thief was delivering a finishing blow to him, Cariel remembered that dream he had since childhood of becoming a hero. Suddenly, he felt a strange and strong aura filling the place. Cariel described this feeling as the presence of an entity that instills reassurance in souls just by being present. He realized then that this is the meaning of a hero. At that critical moment, the hero intervened and grabbed the thief's hand and squeezed it forcefully, making him scream in pain. The bandit leader cursed his situation with foul words, expressing his indignation while retreating away from the heroine. He asked sarcastically why heroes insist on chasing a thief like him with such eagerness even after capturing the Demon King, casting blame on the guide who wasted his precious time. The heroine cut off the path in front of him with a confident stance, confirming to him that they knew well of the Demon King's death and that criminals like him represent the biggest nuisance at the present time. The thief tried to salvage the situation, claiming her chase of him would end today, which the heroine agreed with coldly, noting she was thinking the same thing. The thief rushed toward her, attacking and announcing the heroine would fall into his grasp today, but she initiated a powerful strike. The thief fell defeated in a fleeting moment, and the heroine stood over him asking if everyone was okay. The heroine noticed the severity of Cariel's injuries and ordered him transported immediately to the cathedral while he tried to pretend he was fine despite his obvious limp. Cariel insisted there were those in need of help more than him, pointing to his unconscious companions behind him. While trying to emphasize the priority of saving others, his strength failed, and he fell unconscious, for the heroine to catch him before hitting the ground. The heroine commented with regret, noting he had lost consciousness completely. Cariel opened his eyes very slowly. He looked around to realize he was lying in a small cathedral located on the outskirts of the village. He felt his body in astonishment, noting the pain had disappeared completely in a strange way. He heard a voice telling him he had finally woken up after lying there for 3 days. When he turned, he knew immediately it was the heroine who saved them at that time. She reassured him his body was sound because she requested special treatment for him from the cathedral priests, so he thanked her and hurried to ask about the condition of his group. She told him they were receiving treatment and resting in the next room, which made him exhale in relief. Then she told him she waited for his awakening all this time because she had something to tell him, which sparked his curiosity. She began by formally introducing herself as Ariella, the heroine who solves various incidents under a royal decree, apologizing for her delay in introducing herself. She explained that as everyone knows, this era is more peaceful than the past, but forces of evil still appear constantly. She mentioned reports of unfamiliar monsters appearing in the forests, in addition to suspicious organizations with unknown intentions, and the appearance of demons and hero hunters, causing incidents to occur frequently. Cariel commented with a faint smile on the irony of increasing incidents despite the absence of the Demon King, and she agreed with him. She added that it seems as if those forces are trying to fill the void he left behind. He swallowed nervously when she mentioned that she had investigated what happened inside the labyrinth. She praised his flexibility in handling the situation and his use of the mandrake plant in that narrow space, confirming that thanks to him, they were able to capture the leader and the rest of the gang. While he was processing the news of the thieves' capture, she continued her speech, noting that future incidents might require solutions that do not rely solely on strength. She got straight to the point, announcing that her journey needed a guide like him. She offered him openly and directly to join her on her journey. He was stunned, wondering internally if he had heard correctly, and about the possibility of him accompanying the heroine on a journey, and out of sheer surprise, he replied with a question instead of an answer. He inquired about their next destination, and she answered that they were heading toward the Golem Forest. While he was trying to inquire while stammering, Rena, who was standing behind the door, interrupted him, asking them to wait. She entered the room admitting she had eavesdropped on their conversation and announced her explicit desire to accompany them on this trip. He tried to persuade the heroine to refuse her request, but she interrupted him, asserting that she would be fine as long as she was with her. She justified her insistence by saying he is a weak person who might end up dead alone, so he needs someone to cover his back like her, which angered him, and he considered her words a provocation. She scolded him, saying he had no conscience for trying to leave her behind, to which he retorted sarcastically, asking if he had made a promise to that effect. She suggested taking a leave of absence from the academy, insisting that the presence of a mage would be very useful in the adventure. Then she grabbed her shirt tightly and begged her loudly to take her with them. In the end, it was decided that both would join the heroine on her adventure. He thought to himself that the reason he accepted her offer was the appearance of hope to achieve a goal that seemed impossible, and that he wants to evolve and increase his strength through this adventure, to be able to eliminate that monster with his own hands one day. The heroine cut off his train of thought, calling him guide to move, so he agreed immediately, but he was surprised by Rina's facial expressions. He noted that the corners of her mouth were raised, meaning she was smiling, which surprised her. As they walked, she remembered a practical class at school where she made a small golem, believing them to be cute creatures. He warned her that her high expectations might lead to a great disappointment. The team walked through rugged mountain paths. She complained about not seeing any golems despite the place being named Golem Forest, so he explained to her that this was just a worker's pass. He added that golems are only found in the quarry because it is originally a mine, assuring her that she wouldn't find the cute creatures she imagines there. The heroine asked him for the reason, and he answered that the golems here are of natural origin. He explained that mages use their own mana, which limits the size of the golem, while natural golems are born from massive and pure mana stones. And since the mine is teeming with mana stones, their appearance is common, and here she asked him about the exact reason for their coming to this place. Meanwhile, a masked person was complaining about being assigned the worst tasks because he was the youngest in his group. As he passed by the heroine's group, he decided to pass them quickly so they wouldn't notice him, and heard them talking about a suspicious group entering and leaving this place. The descriptions they were circulating about people wearing white masks and hooded clothes and carrying bags applied perfectly to him and his group. He noticed their looks toward him, and realized he had become their target. He tensed up and scratched his head in confusion, trying to salvage the situation. Then he took to his heels, fleeing, while screaming, asking them why they were following him. Out of sheer panic, he kept running until he reached a rocky cliff. The heroine told him he had reached a dead end, suggesting surrender as a good idea, but a malicious smile appeared on his face. He announced confidently that things wouldn't go as his pursuers thought. Cariel had a strange feeling that he had lived this situation before, while the masked man confirmed that their plans would fail, and suddenly the ground shook violently. A massive rock golem appeared out of nowhere, to clearly announce that he had lured them into this trap deliberately. Rina was stunned by the enormity of the golem, but Cariel tried to reassure her that a natural golem doesn't attack humans first. The heroine asked naively if the golem was trying to shake their hands, which confused him, but he realized the mistake immediately, when the golem brought its fist down, smashing the rocks around them violently. Rina screamed in panic, reminding the heroine of her previous words about not attacking, while the golem continued its advance, trying to breach the place, and its hand extended to grab them. But the heroine used her physical strength to stop the progress of its hand. She asked Cariel to analyze the situation quickly, so he deduced amidst the dust that someone was controlling the golem from its core. She decided to distract the enemy first. One of the masked men controlling the golem noticed that the golem's right arm was blocked by something, while he ordered the other masked man to attack with the left hand. He wondered about the identity of these fighters and suspected they were envoys from the royal government. He was watching the situation from his hideout inside the golem. He pinpointed the location of the person obstructing the golem's arm and ordered them targeted. Rina pointed nervously toward the golem, saying it was attacking them again. Its giant hand swooped down toward them. The heroine realized with her strong intuition that a direct collision with this force would be dangerous for her based on her previous block, so she decided to change her style. She dashed with lightning speed over its hand. While she was running on it, its other hand headed toward her with insane speed. Then she dodged its second attack skillfully, and continued running upward toward the head, bypassing obstacles. The masked man was stunned to see her running up the golem's arm coming toward him, and his companion asked in terror what they should do and if they should fight. But the leader replied coldly that golem masters do not fight directly. She was surprised by the appearance of a smaller golem blocking her way. Then a second golem appeared in front of her, next to the other. Cariel turned to Rina, asking her to chase the suspicious person who just appeared, and she agreed immediately. As he ran, he looked at the heroine in astonishment, realizing that what he was seeing now was the embodiment of a real battle of heroes that he had always dreamed of in his childhood. The pace of the battle escalated as she rushed with lightning speed, cutting through the air toward the golem, dodging the attack it launched at her, then rushing toward it again. She managed to get close to it, and dealt a finishing blow. It collapsed under the weight of the crushing attack. She headed toward the other golem. She plunged her sword into the rock monster's neck to finish it off completely, ending the danger it posed. It shattered completely, turning into a pile of rubble, declaring her overwhelming victory in this short confrontation. Meanwhile, the masked men watched the scene from their hideout in astonishment, realizing that the high-level golem had been smashed quite easily, making them certain it was useless against these opponents, and their only choice was to flee or hold out. But one of them suddenly noticed the disappearance of the boy who was with the group earlier. One of them looked cautiously toward the gap where they were hiding to check the situation, only to find that the heroine had arrived arrived at the entrance. She addressed them mockingly, saying she found their hiding place. The masked man took to his heels trying to escape, while Cariel chased him, ordering him to stop to search his bag. So he replied in a pleading tone, claiming he was just a low-level person who knew nothing and only followed orders. He noticed the distance between him and the fugitive wasn't shrinking, so he asked Rina to use her magic to bind the man's legs, but she apologized, explaining she couldn't use 2 spells at once, so he suggested she climb on his back to be able to use magic. She was surprised by the suggestion and asked him incredulously if he meant what he said, but he interrupted her, announcing he found a better idea. He proposed that he ride the broomstick while she controlled it remotely, and while a sad expression appeared on her face, he asked her the reason for this expression and if the idea was bad, so she answered curtly that it wasn't the case. On his part, the fleeing thief stopped to catch his breath, thinking he succeeded in misleading his pursuers and escaping them. But before he could enjoy a moment of rest, he heard a sound coming from above. He raised his head to find him descending toward him with insane speed, eyes wide open. He collided with him with violent force, leading to the smashing of one of the wooden windows and their fall together amidst flying splinters, and he groaned from the intensity of the pain. He rolled away as a result of the impact force while complaining that she had thrown him as if she were getting rid of him. The thief initiated an attack, directing a punch toward him, but he managed to dodge it. The thief screamed angrily, describing him as the flying guide, and pounced on him, holding him tightly. The thief fell to the ground under the weight of the attack, continuing attempts to deny and claim ignorance. He surrendered completely under his control, while Cariel delivered a powerful punch to him. He secured the stolen goods bag first, while Rina arrived at the scene, asking him anxiously if he was okay, apologizing for her stupid control of the broom. He asked her suspiciously while holding his aching shoulder if she threw him on purpose out of malice, complaining that his shoulder hurt badly, so she gasped in shock at his accusation. She denied the charge in a faint voice, confirming she couldn't do something like that. He noticed she was holding her arm and pressing it tightly, so he asked her with surprise if she had hurt her hand. She explained that this injury was a side effect resembling burns due to her overexertion in the labyrinth previously, so he realized her clumsy magical flight moments ago was because of this pain. He began using his holy power to treat her hand, so she wondered with amazement why he was using holy power suddenly, pointing out she already received treatment at the cathedral and there was no need. He insisted on treating her, explaining she was injured because of him and this extra treatment was better than nothing, then offered his apology for his previous joke regarding horns. She accepted his apology, saying it was all right, and thanked him shyly for his concern and care for her. At that moment, he noticed movement from the thief lying on the ground, alerting her that the man had woken up. The one lying on the ground mumbled in a hoarse voice, announcing he had been awake for a while, mocking their preoccupation with each other to the point they didn't notice that. He held him by the bag, demanding sternly that he reveal the nature of the items in it and their uses, but he insisted stubbornly on his previous answer that he knew nothing. Suddenly, Cariel's features changed and his eyes widened in terror as he stared at a person who fell in front of him, stammering the word heroine in a voice filled with fear. He approached her and asked what happened to her, so she told him she managed to locate the enemy, but they were fortifying themselves behind a magical barrier inside a closed space. She explained the dilemma to him, clarifying that the enemies were hiding inside a box-like barrier, and a reckless attack might lead to killing them, and thus losing any chance to get information from them. He saw that the ideal solution was to create a situation preventing them from using the magical barrier, so he asked Rina if she knew a spell to block magic, but she answered hesitantly that something like that might exist, but she didn't master it. He began thinking of an alternative solution, looking around carefully, and noticed the place was a storage area used by workers. His eyes fell on stacked sacks, realizing they were flour sacks, and a cunning idea flashed in his mind. He remembered her previous injury, so he asked her to verify if those burns were caused by using magic, and she confirmed to him that excessive use of magic generates heat in her hands, so he deduced confidently that using mana generates heat as well, which she agreed with. He smiled confidently, announcing he would create the perfect situation preventing the enemies from using their magic. Meanwhile, the enemies sat inside their barrier, reassured, waiting for the arrival of that person and convinced they were safe until then. Suddenly, strange sacks were thrown at them from the entrance, surprising them and making them think the awaited person had arrived. The sacks exploded, spreading a thick cloud of white dust in the place, so one of them shouted angrily, thinking it was an attempt to block their vision with smoke. One of them realized this dust was nothing but flour, and at that moment their comrade's voice came warning them sternly against using any magic or they would cause a massive explosion. The enemies were confused, while the heroine explained the scientific truth to them coldly, that when dust mixes with heat, a dust explosion occurs. And since mana generates heat, their use of magic meant their doom. The flower clouds faded slightly to reveal her confident face, giving them a choice in a challenging tone if they still wanted to fight under these conditions, confirming she wouldn't stop them from blowing themselves up. The enemies broke into a sweat and one of them asked his leader in terror what to do and if they should hold out. But the leader remained silent, realizing the gravity of the situation. He collapsed under the pressure and announced their surrender in a defeated voice. Elsewhere, one of the monsters emerged from its hideout and decided it was time to move. Shortly after, a mysterious person wearing a cloak with eyes glinting from under the mask arrived at the place, finding it completely empty. He mumbled with annoyance because he combed the forest without finding a trace of any mage, concluding he arrived a little late. The monster replied to him, saying it didn't matter, and vowing they would remain one step ahead from now on. On the way back, the carriage carrying the heroes shook, while Rina fell into a deep sleep leaning on Cariel's shoulder. He thought about their good luck because the enemies surrendered without a fight, otherwise things would have ended in a bloodbath. He recalled his conversation with the captured mage, when he asked him if he had used the item in the bag to corrupt the golem, He remembered the mage's confession that he contaminated the golem's core to harm humans, and her question if holy power was capable of purifying it. The thief had confirmed then that it was possible. She actually purified the golem, then handed the golem mages to the cathedral for interrogation, ending this arduous mission. He breathed a sigh of relief inside the carriage, telling himself that with everything over, he could finally get some rest. However, before he closed his eyes, someone suddenly shouted, ordering the carriage to stop, which panicked them. The carriage stopped suddenly and violently, as one of the bandits placed his heavy foot on board, ordering everyone to get off and surrender quietly if they wanted to keep their lives. The carriage driver panicked severely upon seeing the thieves, standing in place trembling with fear, so the heroine got off the carriage to resolve the matter. The leader turned in terror to see a person wearing full armor exiting the carriage, asking in a trembling voice if that was a knight. She replied in a disapproving tone, considering describing her as a knight insolence, and correcting him that she was a heroine. The bandit leader mocked the title, Bold Hero, waving his hand to start the attack. The thieves revealed hostages of women and children tied up behind them, and the leader threatened that any wrong move from the hero or her companions would mean the immediate death of these innocents. Cariel turned toward her asking nervously about the next step, advising her not to provoke the thieves with reckless actions for fear for the hostages. She announced calmly that her friend was already there, and while a bald thief mocked her words thinking she was planning something, he noticed something suspicious behind him. Suddenly, another person landed behind him and ordered everyone to freeze in their places, announcing they were coming for them. The leader screamed, warning his comrades of the attack coming from behind, ordering them to strike immediately. A fleeting shadow moved with amazing speed, attacking the thieves. Blood scattered in the air, and one of the children was rescued. The bald thief screamed in pain after his arm was cut off, while his companion looked at him in shock and astonishment. Another thief with long hair got angry, trying to exploit the situation by pointing his weapon at the hostages, reminding the attackers they held hostages and shouldn't be underestimated. But she surprised him with a crushing blow before he could carry out his threat, making him scream in pain and fall to the ground. She commented with disdain, describing them as just filthy animals after eliminating them. She reassured the hostages with a calm voice, telling them they were safe now. The hostages looked with gratitude and awe toward their rescuer, muttering the title, Hero. Meanwhile, Rena noticed the smell of blood still lingering in the place, and it bothered her. She suggested returning to the carriage, so Cariel agreed but wondered about the heroine's whereabouts. He glimpsed her helping the hostages, finding it strange the other hero left so quickly, while she urged him to move. Inside the carriage, the mysterious person revealed his identity, apologizing for his delay in introducing himself, explaining he was Ram, a hero known by the title, The Shadow. He praised Ariella's great help to him on his way, making her laugh shyly and ask him to stop embarrassing her. Then Rena initiated introducing herself as a mage and introducing him as their guide. He realized he had been inside the carriage from the start, expressing his admiration for meeting two heroes at once. She felt something was strange, wondering in confusion why there was more than one hero, as the common concept she had was different. She asked him to explain, so he whispered to her that the hero she was thinking of is the one who fights the Demon King and is chosen by the Holy Sword. He explained the difference between the sword hero and the regular hero, pointing out that the latter acts as a superhuman serving the king or the kingdom. Ram added that these heroes earn titles based on their talents, so his title is The Shadow, for his skill in stealth and assassination, not direct combat, which she found not heroic at all. She asked about Ariella's title, and she answered she is called the Chaser due to possessing an exceptional sense of smell and high physical abilities. He mentioned there are other heroes with different titles like Berserker or Adjudicator. She felt dizzy from the abundance of information about heroes, holy swords, and titles, summarizing that titled heroes simply follow the king's orders. He explained that sword heroes aim primarily to kill the Demon King, pointing out that both types of heroes are honored and share the same noble mission. He added, explaining that the common misunderstanding stems from the fame of sword heroes for fighting the Demon King, while the exploits of regular heroes like those serving the kingdom aren't widely known except to those who look and scrutinize, which she clearly understood. Cariel expressed his innocent wish to meet all heroes one day, so Ram commented jokingly that might come true soon if he was lucky. She noticed his redness and excessive enthusiasm, wondering with surprise why he was so affected by this. Ram dropped a bombshell announcing that all heroes would soon join the mission to retrieve the Holy Sword. This announcement stunned everyone, as Cariel asked fearfully if talking about the Holy Sword meant a new Demon King had appeared or was coming. But Ram laughed suddenly and loudly, swearing by his name he was only joking, which annoyed her, and she described him as an eccentric person. The heroine clarified the situation, explaining she intended to explain slowly to avoid confusion, assuring them there was no need to worry about a Demon King. He thought to himself that the Demon King was already dead, and worry was useless, adding the most important thing was to focus on the mission before them. As they approached their destination, Rena asked about the nature of the incident and its relation to her cooperation with Ram. She answered the case involved a series of mysterious disappearances in this forest, and since the forest lies under perpetual darkness all day, it was necessary to enlist Ram for his skill and experience dealing with darkness. The team finally arrived at the village, suggesting heading first to the village that requested help, while Rena noticed he had stopped for a moment. She urged him to move, finding his sudden stop strange. He asked her quietly if she thought a magical beast was the likely culprit for these disappearances. When she inquired if he had discovered something, he pointed out they had been facing humans lately, bandits, mages, thieves, not magical beasts, wondering if it was just a coincidence. She replied the enemy's identity didn't matter as long as the case was solved, believing he was worried humans would cause him trouble as a guide, assuring him they caught the mages easily thanks to him. He walked behind them wondering why they worried about him, thinking a forest like this couldn't host such acts by an ordinary human. He concluded in his thought it must be a magical beast, but he went back to questioning his conclusion for a moment before denying it. The team entered the village enveloped in a gloomy and dark atmosphere. They glimpsed the villagers waiting for them. An elderly man welcomed them, praising their long travel and suggesting they rest in rooms prepared for them, but the heroine apologized gently, pointing out the need to hurry. Ram suggested limiting to a simple check today, asking to summon some villagers to speak with. He began talking to a young woman, asking her to introduce herself briefly, and she answered her name was Nora, working in a restaurant, and she had one son. Her use of the past tense stopped them, so she explained sadly her son was lost in the forest 2 days ago. He asked her to narrate exactly what happened. She corrected the timing to 3 days ago while crossing the forest, noting she knew of recent disappearances, so she was holding her son John's hand tightly while walking. She added sorrowfully that despite holding his hand, her child disappeared suddenly. The heroine interrogated her about the incident details, asking sharply if her child disappeared right before her eyes just like that. She denied that, explaining in a sorrow-filled voice that she actually heard a strange sound then lost consciousness, and when she woke up she found her child gone. And when asked about the nature of the sound, she described it as something terrifying. She described the monster as emitting a horrifying scream resembling terrifying singing. Rena moved her conversation to the other villager sitting in front of them, asking him to introduce himself and share what he knew. The man introduced himself as Dak, starting his story about entering the forest to search for the missing. He explained he searched all day to little avail, but managed to catch a quick glimpse of the monster's form. Shock appeared on her face, asking him in astonishment if he really saw the monster, while Cariel looked with intense focus. He described the monster as a strange creature possessing a snake tail and chicken legs. After hearing the testimonies, he addressed her, noting that after matching the information they gathered, they seemed to have identified the monster, which she agreed with confidently. But upon pronouncing the name, a conflict occurred. She said it was a basilisk, while he said siren. He looked at her sharply, asking her to listen to him as the guide, but she replied arrogantly she studied monsters at the Magic Academy, so he approached her with a confident look that made her tense and retreat, asking why he was approaching. Ram intervened to break up the dispute, calming everyone, noting the monster type didn't matter as much as eliminating it, inviting them to stop fighting. He decided to end the meeting and return to rest in preparation for entering the forest tomorrow, so she agreed, grumbling, muttering she wasn't fighting anyway. The next day, she appeared sniffling and touching her nose, wondering if she caught a cold because her nose was stuffed. He noticed her condition and commented she didn't look well, asking if she was sick. She replied Cariel also didn't look good, joking if he was nervous the monster might be a siren, but he denied, explaining he just didn't sleep well. She inquired about his insomnia, so he told her he kept thinking all night and realized this incident couldn't be humans doing. She felt relieved by this conclusion, and as Ram reached them, he reminded them to focus and not forget. The heroine announced clearly their goal was to find the child and eliminate the monster, then ordered moving toward the dark forest. At the forest entrance, the team decided to split. Ram and Ariella headed right, while they took the left side. They agreed to mark inspected places to ensure no repetition. As they walked, the heroine noticed a strong smell of blood in the forest but couldn't determine its direction, so Ram suggested checking the lake first, asking if she could distinguish the direction by scent. She located the lake through the smell of water coming from afar, noting the distance seemed long. Meanwhile, he decided to move quickly to scout the matter himself, using his special skills. He activated his ability to interact with shadows and move through them with lightning speed to shorten the distance. He emerged from the shadow at the target location, thinking if there was a lake, the presence of a siren becomes a very likely possibility. But he was surprised upon arrival that the lake was almost completely dry. Back to them, Rena seemed exhausted, panting from fatigue, complaining they searched long with no avail, but he corrected, saying there was one place they hadn't checked yet. She looked at him questioning, so he pointed his finger upward, saying, "There." He explained the forest trees were huge, and their densely intertwined branches almost formed a complete new ground layer above, which is the real reason for the forest's perpetual darkness. He pointed to deep claw marks on the tree trunk, suggesting a basilisk might have climbed up, wondering who would undertake the climbing task to verify, so she looked at him nervously before making up her mind. She used flight magic to rise toward the upper branches, and he told her loudly she could stay down if he was afraid, while she confirmed she could handle the situation despite her internal terror. She reached a large gap between the branches and decided to inspect it, but found it difficult to see clearly. She tried to reassure herself she wouldn't find anything, recalling scary memories, hoping what happened in the past wouldn't repeat. Then counted to herself, 1, 2, 3, and pushed herself up. She found herself surrounded by pitch darkness different from what she expected, feeling as if this place was completely isolated from the outside world. She remembered her days as a model student at magic school where curfew was strict, making her unaccustomed to moving at night. She noticed the only light came from the moon's reflection on branches, so she decided to use a very dim light spell so as not to reveal her location. Amidst the absolute silence, she felt her heartbeat and footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. Due to her extreme tension, she became hypersensitive to small sounds, but neglected to use her sense of smell properly. Suddenly, a foul smell struck her nose, which she had gotten used to unconsciously. realizing with shock it was the smell of rotting corpses. She blamed herself for not noticing the smell earlier, wondering if the cold was the reason. Terror took over her and she decided to flee this place immediately. As she tried to move, she felt something grab her foot, so she froze in place looking down. She discovered she was standing amidst a pile of remains. Realizing with a trembling heart, she had seen this scene several times before. Suddenly she opened her eyes in shock when she saw the head of one of the missing villagers in front of her. She let out a muffled scream as her heart stopped beating normally, and instead, she felt like a hammer was striking inside her chest violently. Fear possessed her that the monster would hear her loud heartbeat, so she shrank into herself, freezing in place, hoping this sound would stop. She tried to calm herself and succeeded slightly, deciding it was time to leave. But she noticed that despite her calm, the violent knocking sound continued. Realizing then this sound wasn't coming from her, she raised her head to meet the eyes of a huge monster standing before her among the trees. Realizing she had fallen into the trap, she felt complete paralysis in her body, wondering if this was a physical reaction to fear or a special ability of the monster. She gathered her mental strength, deciding to use defense magic first, then flee immediately. She calculated the right timing to move, then cast her spell and jumped away at maximum speed. But the monster pounced on her and caught her. Below, Cariel stood looking at his watch anxiously, noting 10 minutes had passed, wondering why she was late coming down even though it was just a simple scouting operation. Cariel realizes the current situation is beyond his ability to handle alone, and decides his best option is to join the heroes and go up together. Suddenly, he glimpses a bright flash followed by an explosion. Both Ram and Ariella notice the rising column of light and the sudden explosion sound, so they decide to head immediately toward the guide's location to investigate. The sound of the explosion echoes in the place, raising questions about its source and cause. He glimpses a body falling from the sky quickly, so he runs toward it, opening his arms, only to realize it is Rena. He rushes to catch her, telling himself at that critical moment that the most important thing is not to lose her no matter the cost. He succeeds in catching her before she hits the ground. He asks her anxiously if she is okay. She gasps heavily, trying to catch her breath, while he asks her in astonishment what happened up there. He sets her aside to treat her, and she begins narrating what happened in a disjointed voice, telling him the monster managed to catch her. She explains she was attacked and injured while investigating the upper forest, so he asks her worriedly if she faced it. She confirms facing the monster, noting she used defense magic the moment she was grabbed up there, then lost consciousness. And when she woke up, she found herself being carried in its mouth to some place, so she seized the opportunity and smashed the floor with magic to escape. The heroine apologizes for asking, but inquires why the monster didn't devour her immediately, to which he answers deducing the basilisk stores its prey in its territory, using illusion as a way to preserve food. He concludes the necessity of finding the missing child quickly, deciding to climb to the forest canopy to search for him himself. As he prepares to leave, she calls him in a weak voice while lying on the bedding, begging him to come back alive. He smiles, reassuring her, telling himself the reason for the guide's existence and primary function is to prevent variables and surprises before they happen. Before entering, he explains the nature of the basilisk to the heroes, clarifying that, despite its fame for the petrifying eye, the type found here uses illusion, not petrification, so one must be careful of its gaze. He adds its classification might differ to be a cockatrice depending on its tail shape, whether it's just a snake tail or a snake attached to it. He emphasizes the guide's role is seeing monsters from a different perspective than ordinary adventurers, dismantling their abilities then reassembling information to minimize risks. He points out guides possess scientific, environmental, and monster knowledge, making them work harmoniously with mages, despite admitting their physical weakness. He reaches a wide space above the trees, marveling at the existence of such a place up high. The heroine notices the monster's smell growing intense here, a distinctive mix of chicken and snake scent. He realizes they aren't facing a single monster but several, likening monster grades to adventurer rankings. A diagram shows the basilisk is classified as a high-grade monster, a biological hybrid between a snake and a chicken. He feels the monster approaching, analyzing its danger lying in visual illusions, irregular chimera-like movement, and body lacking clear weak points. He confirms without doubt it falls under the clear high monster classification. He is shocked to see the monster approaching with tremendous speed and unexpected huge size, wondering how it reached this distance so quickly. His body freezes in place, unable to move, while terrifying childhood memories with the monster take over him. The monster rushes, opening its jaws to devour him as he stands helpless before it. At the last moment, a sword intervenes to cut the monster's attack and save the situation, and blood scatters. Ariella sits beside him to check on him, asking him to leave the fighting to them, while he thanks her gratefully. Meanwhile, Ram watches the situation, warning that many monsters are coming toward them. Ram implores Cariel to find the child, so he responds immediately and takes off running. As he runs, he realizes he cannot be a burden following others uselessly. He decides to monitor the situation a little before searching for the missing boy, and suddenly the heroine notices Ram coming under attack. Ram reassures everyone he is fine and this attack means nothing to him, despite the monster's attempt to pounce on him. Ram remembers Cariel's previous warnings not to look into the monster's eyes, and gasps when he sees the monster attacking violently, then delivering consecutive punches toward his face. The monster lets out a resounding scream while blood scatters, making Ram sigh with extreme tension. He notices something strange about this basilisk. It lacks a tail, which arouses his astonishment and questions. He wonders in confusion if this creature is really a basilisk. While another monster rushes toward him, he delivers multiple attacks, inflicting several wounds on the monster's body. He watches the scene in shock as the monster's body begins to regenerate and fuse again, something impossible for a basilisk. Cariel wonders in astonishment why a basilisk possesses regeneration abilities, doubting for a moment if what he sees is an illusion, but becomes certain of its reality. He realizes the weak point of regenerating monsters is usually the heart, so he screams, directing Ram to target the heart. Ram responds to his call, attacking the monster quickly and powerfully, targeting its wings first, and knocks it to the ground, the monster letting out intermittent screams of pain. The heroine intervenes and jumps on it. She lands on its massive body, her sword piercing its heart. She feels relief at the attack's success, but realizes questions remain unanswered. Suddenly, another monster starts screaming continuously and suspiciously, worrying everyone. Both Ram and the heroine are shocked upon hearing its voice, unable to move upon hearing the monster's scream, which resembles singing. Cariel looks in shock at the sound source, disbelieving what his eyes see as the monster's body begins to manifest before them. A humanoid creature with wings emerges from the monster's body, letting out a scream, confirming it is a siren. The heroine realizes she is still unable to move. She tries to escape the place, realizing the danger surrounding her, but another monster appears in front of her, and she cannot defend herself. Cariel is struck with horror, wondering how such a thing is possible. A monster, merging with another. Questions echo in his mind about the siren's presence here and how this strange fusion occurred. He starts feeling the effect of the siren's song, feeling hypnotized and his vision blurring, so he tries hard to maintain mental clarity. He hits himself on the head hard to regain focus, ordering himself to concentrate. While staggering, he notices one of his ears is severely damaged and perhaps the eardrum ruptured, but decides to ignore the pain and postpone treatment. He insists on not stopping now, determined to move forward despite his injury and confusion. The heroine stands before the monster, still under the influence of the siren's song. The monster approaches her, opening its mouth to devour her. Cariel intervenes at that moment, saving her before the monster closes its mouth on her. Meanwhile, Cariel and Ariella notice Ram's absence, so she asks anxiously about his whereabouts since he was beside her moments ago. Then he glimpses him lagging behind. She returns quickly to him and grabs his shoulder to pull him away. Later, he thanks them gratefully while catching his breath and asks Cariel if his ear is okay and asks him to leave the fighting to them. He confirms Ariella treated his ears with her holy power. Then they focus on the unknown chimera, where Ram agrees with her that this monster possesses regenerative abilities. The two discuss the danger of the situation, as combining the siren's song and basilisk's hallucinations makes it impossible to counter both attacks simultaneously. Ariella realizes if the monster regenerates, the main heart must be targeted, but the dilemma lies in locating it, or if it possesses two hearts. Cariel sinks into thought, analyzing that a basilisk is a fusion of snake and chicken, and the main body is the chicken while the snake has no heart. His confusion increases thinking about the siren merging with the basilisk, wondering about the main body in this case, and if this is even possible, but remembers the golem incident and realizes illogical things are possible. Cariel racks his brain trying to find a solution as he did last time, realizing he needs deeper thought. He scolds himself for overlooking something, trying to simplify matters and look for a very basic answer. The heroine decides to leave the analysis task to the guide, and she and Ram will handle the combat plan, pointing to the map saying they must breach the basilisk hordes to reach the siren. Ram realizes they won't be able to protect anyone from mental attacks all the way. He sets the plan requiring someone to play bait to buy time, while the other handles eliminating the siren. When distributing roles, he asks about the mechanism of Ariella's sword, so she explains she charges holy power into the sword, then releases it all at once, and the sword still retains some energy. He volunteers to act as bait, while Ariella agrees, noting she has only one chance to attack, and will target the siren's back. Before setting off, Ram asks Cariel if he identified the main body, so he nods and tells him the answer immediately due to time constraints. Ram lands forcefully amidst the monsters, addressing them saying this pitch-black night is their perfect stage, but mocking it being usually unsuitable for heroes. He moves with insane speed, telling himself wearing his helmet and sweating inside it would make one realize even those called heroes can blend surprisingly well with the darkness of night. Basilisk hordes rush toward him fiercely. He directs his attack toward one monster, and notices another monster trying to ambush from behind, but continues carving his way through monsters using his skills skillfully. Black monster blood scatters everywhere with every strike of his sword, until the siren monster appears before him. He glimpses it, and rushes quickly toward it, continuing to fight fiercely amidst the chaos. Ram feels mental confusion when he almost approaches the siren. His pupils dilate, feeling he has penetrated the siren's body, suddenly starting to feel something strange, but insists on not stopping now. After a moment, he regains full consciousness thanks to the pain and physical pressure he feels from a basilisk monster pressing on him, realizing he was hallucinating. In the midst of the heated battle, he wonders about the source of the sudden attack while blocking a powerful blow. The heroine appears behind the siren monster, cut off by the basilisk merging with the siren. She rushes toward them, aiming her sword at the siren, and remembers Cariel's plan when she asked him about the target to focus on, to answer at the top of his voice announcing the basilisk is the intended enemy, so she attacks the target and eliminates the monster with one blow. The siren song's effect is nullified, so Ram wakes up, realizing he can finally move. He directs his fist toward the monster, piercing its body and finishing it off. Meanwhile, Cariel tracks the foul smell leading him to the monster's food store, fearing the possibility of finding only corpses. He finds the right place and realizes the necessity of moving quickly to save victims. He freezes for a moment, seeing a huge monster appear before him. He pinpoints the child's location accurately, estimating the distance at 10 steps ahead. Suddenly he hears the monster rushing and notices it attacked him with its tail, managing to dodge the attack, and moves quickly to carry the child. He realizes the impossibility of running faster than the basilisk, searching his mind desperately for any other means of survival. He glimpses a weak floor, which can be exploited as a trap to escape, so he makes up his mind. He takes off carrying the child and rushing with all his might to execute his dangerous plan, and notices the monster approaching them. But the monster falls into the trap. He succeeds in jumping and hanging onto dangling roots while the monster falls to hit the ground. He curses the situation, panting while struggling to pull the child up with him with great difficulty. He extends his left hand, attempting to lift the child to safety, muttering he needs to reach a little closer distance. The tree trunk he was holding onto breaks, and he begins to fall. A hand extends from above, grabbing his wrist firmly at the critical moment. Ram appears from above, pulling them to safety, asking the guide if he is okay. Thanks to this intervention, the missing child was saved successfully, and the forest disappearance case solved without casualties. Later, Rena sits beside him while he sleeps, regretting not casting a spell before he went. She thinks sorrowfully about his current condition and delayed waking. Ram was waiting outside the room. Nora appears approaching him with a bright smile, greeting him with the title, Hero. She tells him the villagers prepared food and gifts expressing their gratitude, formally inviting him to attend. She notices his constant retreat toward the dark corner and asks him why, so he justifies it with a nervous laugh as just an old habit. She emphasizes the necessity of attendance and bringing his guide friend with him, so he agrees, promising to deliver the message. He sighs in relief after she leaves, but Ariella interrupts him, asking seriously if he was listening to her, and he asks her about the monster autopsy results. She begins her talk with him, asking if they have time for discussion. So he asks her the reason for summoning him and about the repercussions of the recent incident and what will happen in the future. She explains she previously dealt with a case where golems attacked humans due to contamination in their core, making them act like monsters, noting the similarity between that incident and the current strange case where monsters merged together. She adds investigations showed the connection point and fusion between the siren and basilisk resembles exactly the object that contaminated the golem previously. The two conclude both incidents were orchestrated by the same organization, as the probability is very high. Ariella moves to talk about the main point, the relationship between the Demon King and the Holy Sword. She explains the Demon King's appearance time can be known through prophecies or phenomena like black clouds covering the sky. At the same time, the Holy Sword knows the place and time of appearance through prophecy as well. She confirms the two have an inseparable relationship. As custom has it, the Demon King and Holy Sword appear roughly every 100 years as a fixed rule, continuing until now. She points out this rule was broken only once, when hero Persian killed two Demon Kings. She explains Persian defeated the first Demon King 30 years ago, and the second 10 years ago, meaning something happened in the interval between them. Ram asks if she means Persian broke the rule, to which she answers she wasn't a heroine then and doesn't know details, but simply the Demon King appeared again, unexpectedly. She concludes that after defeating two Demon Kings, that rule became meaningless. And it wouldn't be strange if the Demon King or Holy Sword appeared again any time, even tomorrow. He asks if everything she said is just a guess, and she admits so due to lack of definitive confirmation. She assures him despite not fully understanding what's happening. She is certain the Holy Sword retrieval operation this time will be completely different from what they knew before. The scene shifts to the royal palace in Vinart, where a person is seen watching from the balcony. The subordinate tells the hero everything is ready. Former Holy Sword, hero Persian, announces they will leave soon. Meanwhile, Ram drowns in his thoughts about finding the Holy Sword and those strange creatures, feeling his mind suddenly filled with many things to think about. Cariel breaks his train of thought, calling him, asking if he feels okay. He reassures him, saying heroes did all the hard work, telling him they wouldn't have succeeded without him, which he agrees to with a laugh. The two continue chatting and laughing amicably. He invites him to talk a little at a nearby restaurant if he's free, showing welcome to the idea. Ram tells him he has a question arousing his curiosity. He asks the reason that drove them to target the basilisk specifically when they fought the siren. He apologizes for not explaining then due to haste, clarifying it's very simple. He explains the chimera body is what keeps it alive, and since sirens breathe with gills, they cannot function as a main body in a waterless forest. He expresses admiration for the logical and direct analysis, and Cariel tells him he was lucky his guess was correct. He asks permission to ask him a question in turn, inquiring about the previous incident with bandits, and why he stayed inside the carriage while the hero greeted people, so he remembers that situation. He initiates asking if avoiding light is due to a specific reason, but Ram denies that, asking instead if he remembers their first meeting. He recalls the memory of their meeting during the bandit attack, and confirms it was a shocking and very fast event. Ram begins revealing what's inside him, explaining people admire heroes but are ignorant of what hides behind the mask. He admits after becoming a hero, in order to save people, he had to kill monsters. He adds with a heavy voice he didn't just kill monsters, but bandits too, meaning he killed humans, while his hand appears in his imagination stained with blood. He continues saying he kept killing until he started thinking about removing his helmet. But he felt he turned into just a killing weapon, fearing removing the helmet and seeing people's looks at him. He feared the admiration they hold for the hero they imagine would change. Therefore he chose in the end to hide in shadows and flee, because he fully realizes he isn't the ideal person people expect, while an internal split appears between his image as a hero and his dark reality. He clarifies he doesn't hate people, quite the opposite, but prefers staying away from them because his hands are bloodstained. He laughs, trying to change the atmosphere, apologizing for talking too long and thanking him for listening, while Cariel thinks about it deeply. He realizes he only admired the outer shell of being a hero, and they have their own struggles. However, he assures him his respect for heroes hasn't changed, surprising him. He explains his view that there is a big difference between killing just to kill and killing to save someone. He confirms he doesn't ignore the dark side Ram spoke of, but points out his not ignoring this matter and constantly thinking about it is a positive thing. He posits his theory that the intensity of light creates dark shadows. This means even facing pitch darkness, he is moving toward a brighter place. It simply depends on the direction he looks. If he turns and looks around, he will see the bright light creating his shadow. He advises him not to focus only on the dark side, reminding him he saved him yesterday. He thanks him for his kind words, replying humbly, "It's an honor." Then they decide to leave. Meanwhile, a masked person was listening to their conversation, commenting his way of expression is interesting. After their conversation ended, his group returned and left the village after bidding him farewell. Meanwhile, Rina hears crying near her. He stops suddenly, feeling he forgot something very important, wondering if he left something behind. In the village, Nora and the village elder are shocked hearing the news heroes already left, while carrying cake and gifts to celebrate them, wondering about the reason for this rush. Elsewhere, Ram appears, reminding himself the reason driving them to become heroes is helping people and their desire to be like their siblings. But his talk is cut short, suddenly hearing a scream coming from the forest, deciding to investigate despite fearing being late for the Holy Sword mission. He decides to move immediately toward the forest, reminding himself they didn't become heroes just to find the Holy Sword, but to help people first. Meanwhile, Cariel explains the heroine went to the cathedral to hear the prophecy, while he and Rina stayed to explore the city. He suggests splitting up to buy necessities, then meeting again, sparking his question. She suddenly remembers the embarrassing situation when he carried her earlier, feeling confused and distressed by that memory, and offers to stay together if it doesn't bother him. But she is surprised he left her and went to a vendor, asking the vendor for a hero's magazine, ignoring her completely, searching for magazines. He reads news that former hero Persian handed the sword to his student, and finds an article regarding retrieving the Holy Sword. The article explains the sword retrieval prophecy comes in two parts. The first part announces the sword will appear, and the second part determines its location, where heroes must go to the cathedral to know the location, then retrieve and return it to the kingdom to complete the mission. He connects information thinking of Persian with a certain deduction, confirming to himself the correctness of his thoughts. In the forest, Ram penetrates deep, but finds no trace of monsters, deciding to return, but hears a suspicious sound. He is suddenly subjected to a surprise attack he cannot avoid. The monster asks what to do now, shouting, confirming he isn't a monster. He realizes with horror he almost lost his throat in that blow if he hadn't moved, breathing a sigh of relief. The attacker appears, revealed as Blood Knight, another person causing trouble besides that mysterious group. He addresses him mockingly after confirming his identity as a hero, then begins his violent attack. He is surprised by the strange nature of the attack, wondering what it is. The knight directs a dangerous blow at him, but he manages to dodge it. Blood Knight praises his movements, describing them as smart and fitting the name Shadow. He remembers hearing about this knight, knowing nothing about him except he chases heroes. The knight asks him maliciously if he is thinking of escaping, noticing he seems lost in thought. He decides he must first create distance between them to search for a gap in the opponent's defense. The knight feels happy, realizing he isn't trying to escape. He lands, rushing toward the knight from behind. The monster's body glows with magical energy, preparing for a new attack. The knight launches a sweeping, bloody attack with sharp claws. He is stunned by the attack's intensity and wide range. He analyzes the situation, noticing his opponent's armor transforming and releasing a barrage of sword energy, wondering if it's a technique relying on explosively accelerating blood circulation. He concludes waiting from a distance will make him easy prey, and direct confrontation is unavoidable. The knight mocks him, assuming he exhausted his tricks, warning him his escape won't end the matter because there are many others to take his place. He announced to his opponent confidently he abandoned the idea of living in hiding just a few hours ago, inviting him not to worry. Blood Knight replies, mocking, noting he didn't expect much from him, but demands he become a trophy worth boasting about as a hero. Meanwhile, on another side, a stranger asks Cariel if he admires the hero. He answers with a spontaneous laugh, confirming his great admiration, noting finding someone who doesn't like heroes is the harder thing, to which the stranger replies he isn't a fan. He asks the reason, and the stranger explains reality wasn't as he expected. He replies he cannot understand his meaning. The stranger asks to ask him a question, and asks him to look at a group of children playing in an empty yard. The stranger points to a child in elegant clothes loved by everyone in the middle of the group, and compares him to another child in ragged clothes appearing weak and marginalized. The stranger poses a hypothetical question to him. If he could save only one of them, whom would he choose? He answers with determination he would save both, a response the stranger expected completely. The stranger comments most who know hero stories would say the same, as if words alone could save the world. He adds, looking at a hero poster, that people love those stories because they are bright, but reality is different. People not saved aren't mentioned in stories, and the choice is already made. The stranger confirms decisions of who is saved and left happen outside the frame of hero stories. He objects strongly, explaining heroes don't pick and choose when saving people. He adds they push themselves to the limit to save everyone, making their stories real, not lies. The stranger realizes understanding between them is impossible, and reveals he listened to his conversation with the hero yesterday, and feels curious to see the choice he will make now. He asks in shock what he means. The stranger announces actions speak louder than words, deciding to test him practically instead of asking questions. The stranger surprises with a sudden attack targeting one of the children. He screams, condemning his deed. The stranger unleashes his dark power, trapping him. Villagers are shocked by what happened to the children. The stranger holds 2 children, the same ones he pointed to earlier, giving him a choice between whom to save and leave to die. The stranger asked Cariel if he realized the cruelty and realism he spoke of. Cariel gets angry and curses him. Rena intervenes, announcing she won't save just one but both, casting a magic spell targeting the stranger, adding that fool was right in the end. A powerful explosion occurs. The stranger falls to his knee, and she saves the situation amidst flying dust. He rushes with tremendous speed toward his opponent. Noticing with astonishment his enemy's wounds heal in moments without using holy magic or potions, just as happened with the basilisk, raising questions about this person's nature. The stranger returns the attack, hitting him in the stomach. She tries to intervene, but strange roots emerge from the ground, binding her. Amidst flying dust, he glimpses his opponent fleeing after kidnapping one of the children, so he decides to chase him immediately. He rushes running toward the dark forest behind the stranger, while she screams behind him demanding he stop and wait. She wonders in panic if he really intends to chase that powerful opponent who kidnapped the girl. Realizing their current strength isn't enough to face him, deciding the only solution is summoning the heroine to save the situation. The scene shifts inside the cathedral, the heroine waiting to receive the prophecy from the priestess, and is informed horses are ready to move to meet the rest. But his scream interrupts, declaring an emergency, where a little girl was kidnapped in plain sight. She asks seriously about the perpetrator. She tells her it's a person wearing a hood using strange powers. When inquiring about their escape direction, he explains they headed toward the forest at the city edge. She asks the priest about the forest size. She is warned the forest is very huge, connecting to main forests, but they reassure her Akila's tracking skills will shorten the search from weeks to a few days, reminding her simultaneously not to forget her primary mission, noting there are matters the public doesn't know. Disturbing questions revolve in her mind about the kidnapping timing and its relation to demons appearing and holy sword location, thinking she must decide what to choose. And he tells her his suspicions the kidnapper cooperates with demons and their power defies description, telling her she is the only one capable of stopping them. But she makes up her mind, finally announcing her choice to everyone, asking them to understand her decision. Deep in the forest, the stranger reaches an abandoned wooden hut, where the kidnapped girl sits in fear, muttering she was just a passerby begging him to release her. He reassures her calmly he didn't bring her to harm her, asking about her parents. She answers sadly, she is an orphan living in an orphanage. He continues asking about her relationship with friends. She admits they don't want to play with her and mock her for being an orphan, and other children receive praise for skill in magic or fighting, while she is good at nothing. He exploits her feelings, telling her the more she spoke, he felt how similar they were, surprising the child. She tries denying, noting their power difference. So he suddenly offers her acquiring tremendous power like him, explaining it's simple but there is one condition. She starts thinking about the offer, imagining how possessing such power would stop friends from bullying her, and make teachers praise her finally. He explains there is one condition to grant her power. She replies eagerly and desperately she is ready to do anything to get power like him. He reveals the shocking condition is transforming into a demon like him, revealing his terrifying face under the hood. The girl trembles in fear while he assures her no one comes to save people like them, adding possessing demon power will eliminate her need for anyone's help. She objects with a trembling voice, explaining this isn't why she wanted power, but she only wanted to be accepted among her friends. The girl clings to hope, assuring herself and the stranger that when she is in danger, the hero will inevitably come to save her, and tells him she won't take his power. The stranger mocks her words, asserting that he will let her realize that they won't come to save her, prompting her to scream in refusal of this reality. Despair begins to creep into her heart as she hears the stranger say that the heroes she imagines aren't real. Suddenly, the sound of a violent crash rings out in the place, and the stranger comments in a sarcastic tone that it seems someone has indeed come to the rescue. Meanwhile, the knight rushes towards Ram and directs a blow at him, but Ram manages to dodge it and delivers a powerful punch towards the knight's face. The knight catches Ram's fist with his teeth. Ram attempts to throw another punch, but the knight manages to block it. The attack is deflected due to the knight's armor, surprising Ram, who wonders about the nature of his abilities. The knight changes the form of his armor and aims a blow at Ram. Ram notices that the armor is changing and transforming again. The knight smiles maliciously, announcing that he has caught Ram, and strikes him in the face. Then he kicks Ram's leg forcefully, breaking it. In the meantime, thoughts echo inside Ram regarding mysterious feelings that preceded this fight, where Ram realizes that what awaits him at the end of this battle is pitch darkness, noting his ignorance of the identity of the others mentioned by the Blood Knight or the reason for their actions. He decides that all he can do now is pray that the light remains with his family, friends, and everyone standing against evil, hoping that the light will stay with this boy until the end. Blood scatters everywhere as a result of the violent clash. The scene shifts to the hut where the stranger was hiding, confirming that someone has indeed come to the rescue. Cariel appears from the dust, and the stranger announces with regret that the person who appeared is merely a guide and not a hero. The stranger comments that Cariel wasn't just talk, expressing his surprise that he pursued him all the way to this place, and noting that he is carrying a sword he hasn't seen before. Cariel looks with focus and explains that this sword belongs to Lady Arella. Cariel recalls in his memory Arella's words when she told him she couldn't go with him to search for the child, when he expressed his lack of understanding, pointing out that the opponent is too strong and no one but a hero can defeat him. She replied, emphasizing that the most important thing is that he is the true hero in this situation. Arella confirms to Cariel that she cannot go with them because she is the hero, explaining that her supreme duty is to retrieve the holy sword. This causes Cariel to be stunned for a moment before grasping her true meaning. Cariel understands that the path of recovering the holy sword aims to save a larger number of people compared to the path of saving a single child, wondering bitterly if he has to choose between saving only one side as that bastard said, but he quickly dismisses this thought. Cariel agrees reluctantly, acknowledging that they don't know the variables that might arise during the recovery of the sword and that this duty falls on the hero, so he decides to take on the task of saving the child. Cariel sets off quickly, determined to carry out his mission, and tells Rina that he is leaving now. Cariel warns the hero that the opponents know about the recovery of the sword and asks her to be careful in what she does, confirming that they will handle the search for the child. The hero stops Cariel suddenly, hands him her own sword, and asks him to take it with him, which surprises Cariel, who realizes this is the hero's sword. However, the hero reassures him that she is capable of retrieving the sword from anywhere. The hero reveals the prophecy to Cariel, which says, "In the highest place where eyes meet the mother of monsters, that which stabbed her child shall appear." In the present, Cariel asks about the real reason behind kidnapping the child. The reply comes from the kidnapper that it isn't a kidnapping, but rather he is giving this weak child a choice. Cariel describes the kidnapper as a monster, denouncing the idea of helping the weak that he claims, and wondering if he is trying to turn the child into a monster like him. The kidnapper replies coldly, asking what is the harm in being a monster as long as he can save the outcasts. But Cariel orders him to be silent. Cariel confronts him with the truth that if he truly cared about the child, he wouldn't have chosen this method, accusing him of forcing his distorted values on the little one, and challenges him asking if he is wrong. The kidnapper replies that every person has their untold stories. But Cariel describes the kidnapper as a monster in his thoughts, actions, and everything, regretting his stupidity in trying to talk to him. Cariel decides to end the conversation and retrieve the child. The kidnapper notes that Cariel's words are harsher than expected, observing that a person with no skills like him arrived this quickly. The kidnapper expects Cariel to have companions, and indeed uses a skill to block an attack coming from behind him. Cariel seizes that opportunity and attempts to direct a blow at the kidnapper, but he manages to dodge it. Suddenly, Cariel receives a strong and surprise blow. Rina appears, entering the battle, and launches several attacks. The kidnapper uses his skill to create a wall to hide behind. The kidnapper prepares to fight, announcing that he will show them that turning into a monster isn't entirely bad. In the meantime, Cariel tells Rina that this person is a human mixed with a monster, and asks her to start using fire magic, confirming that he will guide her on the next step based on the battle's developments. Rina confirms her readiness to execute the order, so Cariel gives her the signal to move. Suddenly, the kidnapper isolates the girl far away from the fight, and uses his skills to form a huge wooden monster resembling a dragon out of nothing. The monster attacks them, and Cariel manages to dodge the attack with difficulty. Cariel notices sharp spikes protruding from the monster, and Rina uses her magical power to attack the wooden monster, but she quickly realizes that her attacks barely affect this opponent. Cariel acknowledges to himself that this monster's power exceeds theirs by stages. While Cariel wonders if the opponent is going easy on them or planning something, the monster, who has abandoned his humanity, mocks their persistence and refusal to surrender despite the vast difference in power, threatening that he will become more serious if they continue to resist. Rina realizes that basic fire magic is useless and that she needs to use stronger magic. The two wonder about the delay of support from the cathedral, suspecting that the monster has cut off their path or manipulated the situation. At that time, the soldiers outside notice a strange change in the forest in front of them, where huge wooden walls rise, preventing them from advancing. Rina uses a fire spell stronger than the previous time and hits the wooden monster with it. The wooden monster emerges from the smoke, unaffected by her attack. Rina becomes frustrated by the ineffectiveness of intermediate-level fire magic as well. Cariel focuses his gaze on the monster's body and notices the presence of camellia flowers, intelligently deducing that these are fire-resistant trees, which explains its ability to heal quickly and resist burning, realizing they need to change the plan immediately. Cariel calls out to Rina, explaining to her that small spells won't hurt the monster and asks her to prepare the strongest fire magic she possesses for just one use. Rina tells him that this requires time to prepare. Cariel reassures her not to worry, vowing that he will handle distracting the monster and protecting her until she finishes. The kidnapper expresses admiration for their steadfastness, admitting he didn't expect to meet people with such determination. The kidnapper decides to end the game, ordering them to die. Several roots emerge from the ground, attacking them. Cariel rushes towards them to intercept them. Cariel receives a strong blow but insists on continuing and enduring, telling himself he must hold on until Rina's spell is complete. The monster discovers their stalling plan. He directs his attack towards Rina to stop her before she completes her spell. Cariel intervenes quickly, blocks the attack, and protects Rina, trying to buy more time with great difficulty. In the end, Cariel falls under the weight of a crushing attack and screams in pain, trying to utter final words to stop the monster. Cariel coughs up blood heavily due to accumulated injuries, while his opponent asks him if he is okay, pointing out with surprise his ability to withstand blows for hours since they met. Cariel mocks him, explaining that what he has faced so far cannot compare to what is coming for him. Suddenly, the surrounding atmosphere changes, and Rina unleashes a massive and destructive fire attack. The enemy realizes the gravity of the situation and tells himself he must stop this attack no matter the cost. Rina lets out a powerful scream, gathering all her strength into that strike. The enemy becomes convinced that he cannot stop an attack of that magnitude. Suddenly, the kidnapper finds himself standing in an unknown place and wonders about his location. He notices a wooden chair in front of him. As soon as he sits on it, Memories of the past begin to flow into his mind naturally. He remembers how he always used to come with his family to watch his younger twin sister's performance, noting that it was easy to find her even in the dark thanks to her presence, and that if he focused on listening, he could hear the sound of her beautiful singing. He recalls her enchanting singing voice that attracts people, and her beautiful appearance that defies simple description. The kidnapper narrates in his memory that his family consisted of his parents, his twin sister, and himself, and they were a normal family suffering from poverty, where he thought their lives would continue this way. However, from the moment his sister started standing on stage, their daily lives began to change gradually, as they moved from their dilapidated house in the slums to the city. His quiet school life turned into constant noise, as people began whispering about him and comparing him to his famous sister, describing him as ordinary compared to her. The narrator admits that he didn't realize then how wonderful his sister was, whom others described as superhuman, while he remembers her as an innocent child whose hands sweated with excitement when hearing stories of heroes. He remembered hearing his mother telling her talented daughter about an incredible opportunity, where a prominent noble had arranged a performance stage for her, confirming that the success of this matter might grant them the title of nobility. The daughter promises her mother to do her best, so the mother hugs her tightly, telling her she is everything she owns, while the narrator watches the scene, admitting to himself his sister's magnificence for receiving a letter from a noble. The narrator feels insignificant and of low value compared to the appreciation his sister receives. He admits he was in denial of his sister's influence because he felt her rising star meant he was no longer needed in the family. But after hearing their conversation, he accepted reality and realized he could no longer treat his sister simply as before. One day, the narrator finds new clothes put aside that he hadn't seen before, so he decides to try them on for a moment out of curiosity. He is dazzled by the beauty of the dress and wonders why it was put aside. He suddenly remembers that his birthday is approaching, so he thinks with overwhelming happiness that the dress might be a birthday surprise for him. The mother bursts into the place and screams in his face with extreme anger for asking why he is wearing the dress intended for his sister. She scolds him harshly, saying she is already stressed and has a mountain of worries, and that he is making things worse instead of helping. He tries to stammer a denial, but she silences him and orders him not to reply. He settles for apologizing repeatedly while trembling. He notices this is the first time he has seen his mother this angry, so he decides to apologize to his kind sister, confident she will forgive him. The sister comes and tells him she heard about him wearing her dress. He apologizes to her in confusion, but she replies that she is fine and has many clothes, justifying the mother's anger by saying she is stressed these days, and asks him to understand that. Memories continue to flow, where the girl offers her sister to go watch a play about a hero saving a princess, but the sister refuses coldly on the pretext of training, asking sarcastically who still watches these things. The girl feels regret for not leaving a clue, and realizes that everyone around her is changing, wondering if staying as she is makes her the odd one out, and decides to stop holding on to fairy tale heroes. In the meantime, her father appears and asks her what she is doing in this dark place. She thinks to herself that she has found someone she considers a hero to her more than any other hero. The girl runs towards her father and hugs him tightly, describing him as the wonderful father who always spoiled his two daughters. The father asks her anxiously if something bad happened. She denies it, and he offers to tell her a story about heroes as she used to love before, and she agrees happily. She begins narrating a story about monsters never seen before that started attacking homes and cities. The memory suddenly shifts to a horrifying scene amidst fire and smoke, where the girl coughs and pleads with her father to save her because her legs are numb. The girl glimpses her father amidst the smoke, and calls out to him eagerly. The father turns towards the sound. The girl screams, calling him again, believing their eyes met, and that he will inevitably save her. The father approaches and asks coldly if this is his second daughter. Terror seizes the girl as she looks at her father, and she begs him to save her from the smoke and suffocation. The girl tries hard to banish the bad thoughts haunting her, refusing to believe that her father might abandon her. She convinces herself that he only asked out of curiosity, promises to be obedient, and begs him not to leave her. But the father leaves, abandoning her to the flames, while she whispers in disbelief and pain. The girl calls out for anyone to save her because she doesn't want to die. The girl wonders bitterly why her father asked specifically about her sister at that moment, but she is unable to find an answer. The scene returns to the present where Cariel is unable to see amidst the smoke. His eyes open in shock when he manages to see the result. Cariel realizes that it is over. The monster's memories fade while repeating her final call to her father, not to go. It becomes clear in the memory that a mysterious person approached the burning girl, admiring her body that withstood the flames while she was breathing her last, asking for salvation. The stranger decides that letting her die is a great loss, and while the girl begs to live, the stranger tells her that she will come with him. In the present, Cariel checks on Rena, who lost consciousness due to severe exhaustion. Cariel decides to hurry in transporting Rena to the cathedral, remembering the necessity of finding the kidnapped child as well. The monster burns intensely, but Cariel notices with amazement that it is regenerating simultaneously with the burning. Cariel concludes that the monster won't die as long as its burning body continues to regenerate endlessly, and that the fire won't go out. The girl screams in pain amidst the flames, asking to be saved. Cariel sees the monster trapped and the flames are intense, so he protects Rena with his body from the fire. The soldiers finally arrive and apologize for their delay. One of them asks Cariel if he is okay, while the commander analyzes the situation and sees one enemy burning in the fire. The monster approaches with violent flames. The commander warns everyone of the fire's intensity. Someone asks about the child's location. Cariel replies that the child is still trapped amidst the flames. They confirm his presence after hearing his coughing. The monster rushes with a sweeping fire attack. The The soldiers wonder in shock and anger if this creature is truly alive. The monster appears deformed and burning but still standing, confirming it is alive, and more importantly, the attack is heading towards them. The commander intervenes and pulls the soldier away from the fire. The commander orders his troops to focus, but the soldiers apologize, pointing out that the enemy's attacks are irregular. The commander asks indignantly what they mean by irregular. The commander comments that the monster looks like it is merely writhing in pain. The monster continues its devastating random attack. The priestess notices that her attacks do not affect the monster at all. Cariel comments that its regeneration speed is unnatural. Even the fire covering its body doesn't go out. One of the soldiers screams, warning of the building's collapse and ordering everyone to retreat, while others express their despair at the futility of their attempts to extinguish the fire. The commander issues a firm order to withdraw all units from the abandoned building due to the danger of remaining there. A soldier objects, pointing out that the child is still inside, but the commander insists on retreating first to avoid futile death against an invincible enemy, promising to reassess the situation later. The soldier hesitates, noting the impossibility of leaving the child, and suggests targeting the monster's heart. The commander replies sarcastically that a monster regenerating this fast might regenerate its heart too, and asks indignantly who dares to enter hell to fight, forcing everyone to agree to retreat. The commander calls out to the boy, Cariel, ordering him to withdraw with them, but Cariel remembers a promise he made to himself not to make any more excuses. While the monster reviews the destruction around him, wondering what happened, he realizes with sorrow that all this ruin happened because of him. The kidnapped girl coughs severely, affected by the smoke and exhaustion. The monster tells himself he must save the child, but realizes his inability to approach with his currently burning body. He wonders desperately if there is anyone else capable of helping, answering himself in the negative. He remembers that painful moment in the past, and finally admits that the hero who saves everyone exists only in fairy tales, and that his actions were aimed at preventing the emergence of people like him, and that he started all this for the sake of the outcasts. The monster wonders with sorrow about the reason that led to this catastrophic result, trying to understand how things went this tragically wrong. He blames himself, saying all this happened because he is a useless person, and that this is what an outcast and useless person like him does. He admits to himself that this result was never what he intended, and that it happened because of him. He continues to blame himself, apologizing to everyone with a defeated voice, confirming that he is truly sorry. Cariel is surprised that the monster is blaming himself for what happened. The monster is surprised by Cariel storming into the flames. Cariel intervenes and holds up the debris before it falls on the girl. Cariel screams and throws the debris away. The monster is surprised when he sees that Cariel has jumped into the fire to save someone else. He wonders if this person is the hero who saves everyone, and if he will save him too. The monster imagines if this hero had existed at that time and place. He reaches out his hand towards Cariel, asking for help, and wonders if Cariel would extend his hand to help him back then. The monster recalls one of his memories, when he was a little girl, when another child extended his hand to help her, asking her why she offers help. The rescuer asks her if she needs help. The girl admitted that she indeed needed help. The girl feels ashamed of her appearance and tries to justify her need for help, pointing out that she isn't good at anything and isn't beautiful, and that she is compared to her sister daily, and tells the rescuer that she is a useless person who causes nothing but trouble, and that there is no reason to save someone like her. The rescuer smiles and answers simply that he heard her story. The rescuer extends his hand again, which makes the girl wonder at what he is doing, and tells her that her simply needing help is reason enough not to leave her. The rescuer confirms to her that he doesn't need any other reason to help her. The girl is moved by his words and asks him if he will really save her. The rescuer confirms that to her and asks her to hold his hand. The girl realizes in that moment that the hero who saves everyone truly exists. She holds the rescuer's hand tightly, overwhelmed by a feeling of gratitude. In the present, Cariel stabs the monster with his sword, while the monster offers him thanks. Cariel believed that the only obstacles a hero faces in his adventures are monsters. He returns to reality and asks her in shock about what she just said. The girl thanks him with deep gratitude for saving her. Cariel realizes that the sword he was wielding, believing it to be a hero's sword, has plunged into the chest of the girl whom he couldn't distinguish whether she was a monster or human, yet she thanked him. Cariel gasps with difficulty, denying that he is a hero. He remembers his mother's words who always told him he isn't a hero, and thus shouldn't help others. Then he begins to recall old memories of a girl being bullied while his mother asks him not to intervene. The sounds of the crowd echo in Cariel's mind, screaming in panic, describing the creature before them as a monster, asking indignantly about the nature of its food if it isn't human, and if it feeds on humans. In that memory, his mother's voice comes to him, sternly ordering him to stop staring and ignore what he sees. Little Cariel tries to object with the word but, only to be interrupted by his mother's voice again, forbidding him from intervening and confirming that someone else will help instead of him. Cariel responds to the order helplessly, lowering his head in agreement as he walks away with heavy steps, while signs of shock and disappointment appear on his face. The little girl appears being bullied, her eyes shining with a distinctive orange color amidst the darkness. Cariel remembers that he promised to keep his mother's words, but as soon as he saw the expression on that child's face, his body moved on its own, and he doesn't remember much of what happened after that, except the memory of returning home and listening to a long scolding lecture from his mother that lasted for hours. Cariel returns to reality at the sound of Rena asking him if he has woken up, noticing that he looked extremely tired before they left. Cariel asks her anxiously if she is okay, pointing out that her body must be under great stress due to her excessive use of magic. Rina reassures him with a faint smile that she received treatment at the cathedral and is fine, but she expresses her worry for him because he looked sick the whole time. Cariel begins to speak with difficulty. He confesses to her that he set out on this journey with the intention of revenge against monsters, and believed that what would appear before him were only monsters. But he clarifies that the monster he faced had a face asking for help, just like that face he saw when he was young. Cariel admits with pain that despite seeing that pleading face, he couldn't stop his arm that was swinging the sword. He adds that he was afraid of the fire in front of him, and that's why he struck with his sword. He confirms with sorrow that he didn't want to do that and it wasn't his intention, wondering bitterly why he never had a choice, and how he was always dragged behind events against his will. Rina comforts him with a sad look, assuring him that what happened wasn't his fault. Cariel gets lost in thought, saying that person called him a hero in the end, surprised that it happened despite a long time passing since he gave up the dream of being a hero. He tells himself that if he were a real hero, as that person said, everything would have been different, and if he were strong like heroes, he would have been able to protect his friends, his village, and his parents. He believed he had definitely given up, and that the probability of his return was smaller than dust motes entering through cracks. Then he calls out to Rina, telling her that no matter how much he thinks about it, he doesn't believe he was capable of giving up, declaring that he still wants to become a hero. The scene shifts to show that Cariel and Rina are currently heading towards Echidna's maze. Cariel explains that the location of the prophecy Lady Arella told them about is in the highest place, where gazes meet the Mother of Monsters. Cariel interprets that Mother of Monsters is Echidna, and highest place must mean the top of the tower. He adds that there are gates they must cross to reach Echidna. Cariel points to a tower appearing on the horizon, explaining that it is the maze that takes the form of a tower and is known as Echidna. He adds that the corrupted land lies directly behind that tower, where the sky looks split when viewed closely, which is what they call the entrance to the demon realm. He completes his explanation that the Demon King appears from that entrance. Suddenly, Cariel stops, stunned, feeling something strange. Cariel feels sudden pain and puts his hand on his head, and Rina asks him in panic what is happening and what is wrong. Cariel wonders to himself what just happened, and about that terrifying gaze he felt. He answers her while sweating profusely that he doesn't know, but he was terrified for a moment as if his eyes met with an entity from beyond the demon realm. Then Rina asks him if that was a woman. He replies in confusion that he doesn't know, but the matter gave him goosebumps, and he is surprised by her question, so Cariel decides to ignore the matter and continue walking. The two arrive at an area guarded by soldiers, where a guard stops them, announcing that a mission by order of the royal court is taking place in this area, and entry is forbidden to unauthorized persons. Rina and Cariel identify themselves as companions of the hero Arela. They explain to the guards that they came to participate in the Holy Sword recovery operation, asking permission to meet Lady Arela. The guards received Cariel and Rina's talk about recovering the Holy Sword with a wave of mockery and disapproval, as one guard scolded them, asking them to stop joking and leave immediately, wondering sarcastically who has time to verify such claims under the current circumstances. The guard justified his refusal with annoyance, pointing to the utter chaos caused by the gathering trolls crowds, and that he has a headache and cannot tolerate more disturbance, while another guard showed slight hesitation, suggesting checking the matter. Rina tried to salvage the situation with enthusiasm, offering them to join the battle to help, admitting she cannot fight currently, but will be able to once she recovers a little. The guard replied with a stinging insult, describing them as blood-sucking intruders, and ordering Rina to hold her lover's hand and get out of his face, causing Rina's face to turn red with embarrassment as she denied that attribute about Cariel, while another person intervened, pointing out that they don't look like liars and suggested allowing them to enter. The guard asks the owner of the voice what he knows to interfere in matters this way, causing Rina to turn to see who is helping them. The guard recognized the owner of the voice immediately, whose features looked stern, realizing with shock that she is a member of the hero Asania's team. The short-haired woman stood with her formal clothes and sharp look, and confirmed to the guard that Cariel and Rina belong to the same side, meaning the hero's group. The woman confirmed to the confused guard that the hero Asania is indeed here, confirming to everyone the arrival of hero Asania to the battlefield. At that moment, the ground began to shake, announcing the approach of danger. The commander screamed at his soldiers, announcing the enemy's attack, and ordering the spearmen to advance to repel the attacking trolls crowds. The commander directed his orders to the archers to wait and not shoot until the signal was given, but he stopped suddenly upon seeing an unfamiliar sight. A figure clad in black advancing slowly and steadily towards the monsters. The commander realized the danger of the situation and the power of the emanating aura, so he screamed at his soldiers, ordering them to retreat immediately and withdraw from the battlefield. The armored entity stood in front of the huge monster, addressing it in a cold and terrifying tone, ordering it not to look down on him. With a lightning movement, the hero lunged at the monsters, waving her huge weapon, cutting her way through them with violence and tremendous speed, tearing their bodies apart in the blink of an eye, and blood scatters everywhere. The hero stood over the cut-up monster's corpse, addressing it mockingly that since it looked down with contempt earlier, it is now its turn to look up from its fallen position. Silence and astonishment prevailed among the soldiers, and one of them wondered what just happened, for the other to answer that he didn't know. In one moment the monsters filled the place, and then disappeared. The narrative explained that this is the hero Asania, the only disciple who learned swordsmanship from the former Holy Sword hero Persian, and that she is the hero who was granted the Holy Sword and inherited its symbolism, and that she embodies her nickname, the Berserker, by enjoying fighting. The narrative added that her combat skills are ranked among the top 3 among heroes, which is why she is always deployed to the front lines or core missions. While Cariel was watching, he felt a contradictory mix of relief and tension due to the presence of someone with this terrifying power with them. Cariel noticed the hero passing by him, and although he couldn't see her face clearly, he felt that her tone and attitude weren't as harsh as he imagined. Cariel glimpsed the hero's team members who helped them at the gate walking away. So he suggested to Rina that they follow them. Rina agreed with him, and the two began catching up to them. They arrived at a building that appeared to be the barracks of the soldiers entering the maze, and Cariel glimpsed the man who was with the short-haired woman. Cariel approached and thanked the woman and the man gratefully, explaining that thanks to their intervention they were able to enter easily, while the woman stood with arms crossed and rigid features. But soon, shyness and confusion appeared on her, explaining in a faint voice that what happened earlier wasn't her opinion alone, and tried to change the subject awkwardly. The brown-haired man intervened, welcoming them, and suggested considering that both parties had exchanged thanks, then asked Cariel if he works as a guide, and introduced himself in a strange way, saying he is a man, with a bow. Rina was surprised by his way of speaking and asks Cariel if he is trying to make a rhyme, so the man explained that he helped them because he has a younger brother and couldn't ignore them and simply pass by. Rina whispered to Cariel, wondering about the identity of this person, pointing out that he looks very familiar, and likened him to that apprentice warrior they went on a maze exploration adventure with in their beginnings. The archer explained to Cariel and Rina that he feels a kind of familiarity and closeness towards the guide profession personally. He attributed this to an incident that happened a while ago, when he received news that his younger brother had been seriously injured, forcing him to go to him immediately. The archer recalled that moment when he saw his bandaged brother and asked him in shock how he was still alive even though he heard his injury was life-threatening. The brother replied in a reproachful, sarcastic tone, asking if this is what should be said to a brother who just returned from death. The brother attributed the credit for staying alive to a certain person. He admitted that at first, he despised that person for being merely a guide, but they managed to survive because that guide didn't abandon them and held on to hope until the last moment. His brother expressed his strong desire to meet that person someday to express his deep gratitude, which the archer agreed with. The priestess confirmed enthusiastically that that person was the one who truly saved them, narrating how he intervened at the crucial moment and blocked the sword of a thief who was about to stab her. She added that she learned correctly about the nature of the guide's work through that experience. It seemed to her a very charming profession, expressing her desire to meet him again. Simon suggested they search for him together enthusiastically, but he retreated suddenly with a confused laugh, pointing out that searching for him might not be a wise idea, which surprised the priestess. In the present, the archer explained that his brother didn't provide any description of the guide despite his question, as he knew nothing but that he was a guide. He concluded his speech that despite that, if they met someday, he must repay the favor. In the present, Rina leaned towards Cariel, whispering to him sarcastically that the descriptions the archer mentioned apply to him perfectly. Cariel burst into artificial, intense laughter, claiming he didn't know that person, but described him as a hardworking young man. He added loudly that he would like to meet him too to learn from him as a friend, causing Rina to comment mockingly that his old fake personality has resurfaced. The short-haired woman, Asanya, interrupted them suddenly, carrying 2 bowls of hot soup. Noticing their continued conversation, she offered them food to fill their stomachs since there was some time left before leaving for the maze. She advised them not to refuse because entering a huge maze will inevitably make them hungry. The archer confirmed to them with a confident smile that he guarantees the taste and quality of the food. Cariel and Rina stared at the food eagerly, muttering the word, food, with their eyes shining. Asanya thought for a moment that they were hesitant, so she apologized if she was forcing them to eat against their will, but they denied that quickly with enthusiastic screams, offering their profuse thanks and confirming they would eat well.